This podcast contains adult themes and language. The views expressed here are our own opinions and experiences. We are not medical professionals.
In this podcast, we discuss our opinions about mental health, sobriety, addiction, and our pursuit of happiness and peace. This is Sober Mind.
Oh, yeah. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Yay.
Good morning.
No issues. Good morning, all.
Odie, always first. Man. Fem, good morning. Nice to see you. Amanda, good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. All right, let's do introductions. My name is John.
I'm Judy.
And I'm Patrick.
Patrick.
That's how my son says it.
All right, this is Sober Mind, where we have grown folk conversations about honest, undiluted, unfiltered discussions about mental health and our sobriety journeys.
Mm-hmm.
Odie, okay, I can't read the chat. It's very distracting all the time.
Oh, the pants. He likes. I'm in jammies because I got to bolt after this.
Yeah.
Doing Christmas activities with my dad's side of the family.
So they have a pajama party.
Pajama party.
Which is fantastic. I think everybody who does Christmas should stay in their jammies all day. I think that should be a requirement.
Yeah.
Everybody stay in your jammies all day.
Yes, absolutely. Both my wife and I's families are split. And when we got the little ones, like, I don't know if anybody's come from that. This is kind of a first world problem saying, but it was a carousel of events on the holidays. And it was really stressful during Christmas to be just running from place to place. And so we talked, and she was well, I'll be honest, it was a lot of my wife's, persistence and direction that, like, I think once we had our second, we were pretty much like, yeah, we're done traveling on Christmas. If you want, we will do whatever, kind of the weeks leading up. But like Christmas Day is for family and for enjoying that. So we cook a big breakfast smorgasbord and invite people over and just say, like, look, we get it if you can't come over. Our house is an open house, but we're going to spend our day in jammies and enjoying, the family. So
nice.
We're very active outside of that, but I think that we were wanting to be protective of that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good for your kids too.
Okay. Hey, Lisa, good morning.
All right. What's up, y'all?
All right. So today's topic, before we do gratitude, is addiction from the other side of the table. So one of our viewers and great supporters, Odie, brought this up a couple shows ago when we asked for fans or viewers to give suggestions, and this was his. It's a fantastic discussion. We've discussed it in a roundabout manner many times, but it'll be nice to take a deep dive into it. So before we get started, let's go gratitude. I'm very grateful this morning about my happiness and health. I've lately been consistently in a very nice, positive, almost serene mood, which, for us, oh man, I told myself I wasn't going to say, I say, a lot. I was watching the videos. For us, folks that are have been anxious and high functioning depressed for the greater part of our lives, being happy consistently feels really nice. So I don't know, in the last few months I haven't had any drastic swings, so I think this is the continuation of me still, it was just April when I got off all of the medication, so it feels good.
Yeah, you've been doing really well.
I will pay you the $5 after the show for saying that.
I'm proud of you, John.
Thank you. And also gratitude for you guys and the show. Thanks for being in my life and supportive. And thank you for all the folks that are joining. Hey, Aster. Welcome to the show. Okay. Gratitude. Who's next?
I'll go.
Go.
I am grateful for... Okay, so recently I've been taking different types of vitamins and nutrients and minerals and stuff like that. And I think I've gotten a really good combination to where I feel really good. Going through all of the hormonal crap that I'm going through to get something that keeps me happy and at an even keel throughout the day has just been fantastic. It's all natural. It's all, magnesium and amino acids and ginkgo biloba and ginseng. And it's all natural stuff. It's not anything that's prescribed or anything like that. But I've been able to get to a combination of stuff that has been working fantastic. And I haven't been on the emotional roller coaster that I have been on, which has been amazing. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Experimenting with nootropics is... your mileage will vary greatly.
Yes.
And your doctor can't really give you any advice because none of that is
FDA approved.
Amino acids. Damn, I said it again. Amino acids, stuff like that. Anyway.
That's right. I say right and like.
You're a Valley girl.
Yeah, I'm a Valley girl at heart. It's okay.
For sure.
No, I'm not going to be able to do it with a straight face.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right.
What are you grateful
Patrick?
for?
Gratitude for me is my sobriety directly, meaning I often frequent the stop drinking subreddit, and help give feedback and, just participate in that community because that was critical for me early in getting a lot of resources. And we often talk about growing your little tree of, toolkits and mental health awareness. And in those early days, it's very nerve wracking because you got a little seedling and it feels like you got to be super protective of it. And I'm at the point now, a little over 3 years where I feel like it's becoming stout and robust, like it is the bastion of my, empowerment. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it feels like a rock within my identity almost now.
You've got a good foundation.
Where I got a good foundation in it. Before without that, with as tempestuous as life can be in the emotional roller coaster, it feels like I don't want to call it like a fortress of solitude because I don't want to make it sound like I'm retreating to it, but it is my place of security and gives me the footing to weather those storms.
Nice.
As they come.
Good deal.
Yeah, that's important, Patrick. That's a good milestone to. It's difficult to articulate that to someone else because how we always talk about your mileage will vary. Depending on, like us, we're in our 50s. We drank for the greater part of 30 years very heavily. So our sobriety and mental health journey is going to look a lot different than a person that has got into it knee deep for 5 years out of college and then is like, I need to quit. So
that in different stages, remember the first year, like first toolkits, you're like, I I just want to like not drink. So you're, worried about going around events that have alcohol or events that would trigger you and stuff like that. Now I feel like I can go to those and I can say, when something does come up, I can say, at least I'm not, I don't have to either participate in part of that or like I'm happy not to because I have my sobriety. Like before I thought it was something that I needed to protect, and now it's something that I can either wear on my sleeve or, like that is something that continually makes me stronger.
Good.
Matt, do you feel like you're more comfortable within yourself in those situations?
Oh,
now?
absolutely. That's part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
Learning to be comfortable with what makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I've noticed a difference in you in the over a year that I've known you as well. You've gone through, just like us all, some ups and downs, valleys and peaks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for not just bailing out. Thanks for being here.
I wanted to say a couple things. One is good morning, Mom. The second one is Lisa said that we can do a whole show on hormones and recovery. Amen, sister. Amen.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get into it. You ready? Patrick has a hard stop at the top of the hour. So
Yep.
if we're into something good, you can just get up and get the fuck out.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, I just ghost
You got
out the side.
You got the clock there, so.
So today we're talking about dealing with somebody else who a family member, a friend, somebody else who is an addict, and you being a part of that relationship.
Yeah.
I think your sister brought up, as we're getting into it, I really like those 3 fundamental items for the rules of engagement.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, we're going to talk about all other dynamics of that aspect, but I think those are one of the 3 most important things. They're simple and fundamental on engaging those with addiction.
Yes. My sister called me. She's an Al-Anon member, and she's had to deal with these things. So she had some really good pointers today. The first one was to separate the person from the disease, because it is a disease. And so we need to, when dealing with that, is to learn how to separate the person from the disease that they have, which is not an easy thing, because it's society as a whole tends to put labels on things. And when they see somebody, we talked about this last Saturday, when they see somebody who is an alcoholic or a drug addict or something, that's automatically a label that's been put on that person. It encompasses them as that's who they are and that's all that they are. And it's definitely not like that.
Like they're in their position because they made bad decisions or because they're morally inept.
Yes,
right?
There's something broken in that person. And so that's why they're the way they are. When, for the most part, with what I have been researching and doing YouTube and, watching videos and stuff, it's not necessarily... There is something broken in that person, but it has to do with some kind of trauma that person experienced some time in their life that flung them into that situation, and not going through that trauma and not having the tools to deal with the trauma. And so they turn to alcohol or drugs or whatever.
Yeah. I'd like to give a quick preface of how I want to approach this discussion.
Sure.
And that is just to let everyone know that Judy and I we've been together for 22 years.
22 years, yeah.
Dang, high five. Been married for 21 of those. And for the greater part of that entire relationship, we are codependent, and we are both alcoholics, and coupled with my depression and anxiety, and Judy was a heavy marijuana user as well.
I was a pothead.
So as we get into this discussion, I think I'll be talking about my views from that side of the table, because it's important for for folks to understand that you can have that relationship. It's not healthy, but you can also come out on the other side of it, like Judy and I did. And then also give perspective on my childhood and middle adult or post-adolescent teen years of growing up with addicts, and me, of course, being young and sober, and how that affected me and hurt me emotionally. It's a lot to unpack. Might have to make a part 2 on
probably
this.
not have
Good
enough
thing
time
this
for
is a
that one.
series of discussions.
Yeah. All right. So for this first seminar,
Pandora's box.
Yep.
yeah. So what do you want to do, Patrick? You want to jump into it, or how do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as we're continuing with the rules of engagement, I think we knock those out. So, Judy talked about the first one. So the second one, I think, is extremely important because I think it's a global, it's a good golden rule, especially with addiction. This one's the super hard one. You want to share the second?
The second one was not to engage when they are either drunk or on drugs or whatever. When they are inebriated, that is not the time to engage them, because there is no filter on them. They will go full bore. You're not dealing with the person. You are dealing with the disease at that point.
Yep. And that, and I also want to bring up, we'll get in later, but a lot of the issues that we begin to talk about dealing with somebody with addiction also relate to codependency habits and behavioral habits. And so while not engaging or trying to set extremely strict boundaries when that person is under the influence, so too goes for you. Like, don't try to engage, approach a subject when you are under the influence as well either.
I think this is a lot of where codependency mixes into this the whole batter of cake we're making here. Because codependency is a heavy, it's another form. I think it's another form of a disease, because you are not coming at it from an educated perspective. You're coming at it from a sick perspective as they are as sick, if that makes sense. I don't know if that, because the codependent is dealing with their codependency. They're not dealing with anything from a learned point of view.
Yeah, I think codependency is probably more an emotional development opportunity.
They're trying to be the rescuer. They're trying to fix.
Those behaviors, addiction, codependency, evolve out of us just trying to deal with the world as we see it.
With the tools that we have.
With the tools that we have. I feel shitty. I drink this. I feel better for this immediate short term. And, the brain builds behavior around that. We've talked many times of, dispelling that myth and how it's actually hurtful in the long run. But in the short term, remember, the brain wants to avoid that short-term pain. So all these, like even the codependency stuff, if I cry out loud and I make a big enough scene, somebody will come and fix my problems for me. Boom, problem fixed. Right? So these behaviors, these behaviors get reinforced. And so the mind, in the prediction modeling machine, it goes, I want to avoid short-term pain. And it goes, if I know this happens, then this will happen and this will happen. It may not be perfect, but I know it will happen and I can predict it. So I'm going to continue to engage in these behaviors. And that's where the reinforcement comes from. So to tie it back to kind of our thing, that's why the rules of engagement are there, especially, I know AA has this rule, like, if you show up drunk, they're going to say like, look, we need to have you sober for X amount of time, because it just gets really messy because the brain is misfiring at that point and when you're on your substance of choice.
Yeah. And you're like I said, you're dealing with the disease at that point. You're not dealing with the person.
Yep. So rule number 3 on the rules of engagement.
Reach out. There's tons of stuff out there. There is Al-Anon. If you're a church goer, there is the clergy. If, you have other denominations out there that you that you go to, there's always going to be somebody out there going through the same thing you're going through.
Yep. This I speak to as find your modality.
Yeah.
You know, doctor, psychiatrist, therapist, support group, church group,
Yeah.
hobby group,
Whatever works.
whatever it is. And this approach is, I think this is an important one because this is one of those things that begins to pry apart that codependency. If you're in a strictly isolated codependent relationship and you're trying to deal with somebody with addiction, you're gonna have that intermixed batter of mess of codependency items, you know, martyr and savior and everything, all that mixed into it. But when you have a support group, that is an outlet to help you process, you know, certain things, because you are a person too in this.
Well, Michelle just made a good point. She says there's a fine line between codependency and caregiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a good point to make, because you can get wrapped up into it, and if you're not coming from a stable place to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard. I've seen a lot of, so we've talked about, if you want to learn more about codependency roles, the drama triangle, give it a Google's. Does a really good job at trying to place the inner dynamic relationships between some of the people.
Or go to our former show that we did on Drama Triangle and watch on Sober Mind.
Yes.
I wanted to point out, Fem also said that veterans have other resources at their disposal as well. So I don't want to discount
Modality.
that as well.
Go find it. Don't be alone with it.
Yeah.
And to that point, I wanted to get at for the people seeking help for others with addiction. I am just going to set up a warning to make sure to, I guess in AA, they call it keeping your side of the street clean first, right? You're going to have to work on stuff for you, setting your boundaries and empowering yourself in order to help the other person. Meaning, if that person is struggling with addiction, you're not going to be able to put on the cape and fight that battle for them.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be able to say, I'm going to take it all out of the house. I'm going to do all, you know, like, I'm going to have all these rules that you have to abide by. There's points where you do set boundaries of stuff and they break it. But at the same time, you're not going to win the battle yourself of their addiction. Those are doors that person has to step through themselves. So if you think you're going to be the rescuer and martyr yourself to like, will it to happen? This is the sucky part. That person with addiction will fail. Relapse is part of the recovery, and it scales to certain amounts, right? They're going to struggle with it and have some missteps. And, you know, for the person that thinks that they can save the other person, you know, that's a very hard point too, you know, because they wear that failure as well. When a lot of these tools, you know, without Al-Anon is setting boundaries and learning how to set a safe space for not only the person with addiction, but yourself. The rules of engagement are a perfect one, right? When that person is in the throes of the addiction, you don't go in there and being like, well, we're going to get you better and, you know, whatever. Let's talk about it. And it's like, look, it's setting up a boundary and says, I want to help you. But at this point in your state of mind, you know, that is, you know, not able to do so. I can't tell if it's you or the addiction at this point. So please come to me when you're sober and we can
I think it's very important to give yourself leeway to say no.
Yeah. No is a complete sentence.
Yes. No is okay when you're in that situation.
And know that, man, what a lonely process to have to go through as well for codependent relationships like that, especially when one is sober. Next year, if it all works out, we'll have Michelle here physically. She can really talk her journey.
And Guy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Michelle in particular, her journey of codependency is probably one of the most textbook that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
She went through it for a long time and talk about, you know, a saint of patience. It's a lonely existence for a lot of that, I can imagine.
Yeah,
So-
because you also end up trying to protect that person by hiding a lot of stuff, a lot of their acts, a lot of
yeah, that's another
a lot
one.
of their addictions and activities and stuff. You try to hide that to try and save that person from judgment from other people, and you can't do that.
Right. That's part of that savior thing. And I think that's why support groups are important, because you got to learn to process that. There is a certain point to giving them space for grace, but at the same time, if you do that too much, you become an enabler.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you're just providing a better shield for them to get to their addiction.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's jump into the enabling portion. So go ahead.
Yeah. They're talking about the self-care is not selfish care. Just real quick, the analogy of when you're on the airplane and the masks drop, you don't climb over the seat to go put it on another person first. What do they ask you to do?
Put it on yourself
Put it
first.
on yourself first.
Then help somebody else.
So too with Al-Anon. Right here first. Take care of yourself first so you can help take care of others.
There was a story that I saw on it's a YouTube channel called Recovery Tree, and there was a story about this guy who is in recovery and he's sober now, but he said the best thing that his mom did for him was to tell him no. He wanted a pair of shoes and he had a coupon to go get a pair of shoes because he was sleeping on the street and his feet were cold. And his mom said no. And 2 months later, he ended up going into recovery because he didn't have those pair of shoes. So it put him in a more uncomfortable situation. And basically he ended up going to recovery, and it saved his life by his mom saying no.
Yep. That reminds me of a
very simplified story. But
I want to be tangential here about self-empowerment, to be able to do that and awareness of that. The late Kobe Bryant, I remember, talked about dealing with money, and when you reach, that's a rare thing to be young and get that sort of money. And you often see people like just, like either they don't have the emotional financial wherewithal. They just think, oh, here's this guy, he's making a lot of money, I'm going to go to him. Hey, Kobe, I'm a family member, give me money. And his best advice was to the people that in his same situation was, don't give your family money. Find a reason to invest in them.
That's a good one.
So that means like if you're coming to me for money, give me a reason to invest in you. Right. So too with recovery. Don't try and recover the person yourself. Provide the space to invest in them so they can get the tools themselves to recover in a more healthy state.
That is good. All right, can we switch gears a little bit and talk about the enablement?
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about enablement from me and Judy's perspective and the unhealthy roller coaster of codependency that it was. And so I for the last 6, 7, 10 years, Judy and I, we wanted to get sober in various fashions, but we would never talk to each other about it. That's an unhealthy form of enablement because we were scared. Go ahead, Patrick.
Did you ever get drunk because she got drunk?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, as in, we're doing this together, or as in like, she is drunk right now. I wasn't planning on drinking, but I can't fucking deal with this, so I'm getting drunk.
I would do that when she would smoke pot, because she would get super stoned, and then pot smokers know that once you get high, you're just like marshmallowed out. It's like, well, now I don't have a conscious discussion platform or an engagement model in my relationship. So fuck it, I might as well just get drunk too. That's a really good example, Patrick. So that roller coaster happened 1,000 times because there was I wonder if I could figure out a way to get sober today. And then Judy would be
high.
Judy would be hitting the pipe.
Diet starts Monday. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how this shit's never gonna work out. There's always sorry, this is not a blame thing. It's always that's the excuse of I can't help myself if she can't help herself either. And on the flip side of that, there'd be a lot of weekends to where we'd wake up, we've talked about this, the super hungover. And then I'd figure out a way to start drinking again to stop the hangover process. Like we talked about on the previous episode, how your body's trying to process all that crap. So getting drunk again felt better. And then she would be drinking water, and I'd constantly find myself going, can I get you a beer? Can I get you a beer? Can I get you a beer? No, I'm just going to stick with water. And that was really offensive to me. I tried to rationalize, like, you know what you're doing, John. Don't, because you have a problem and you can't sit here sober for the day. You're taking offense that she is finding a day to be sober in its very simplest form. There was a tangible relief, like towards the later part of the day when I'd be like, 18 beers into it, and she'd finally crack open a beer. I remember thinking, oh, thank God. It was like a huge relief. So,
because it validated behavior.
I guess so.
I think it also, for us, I think it also kind of, I guess, felt like we would be on the same wavelength again. We'd both be in it together. Misery loves company.
Misery loves company.
Yeah.
I think these are important aspects to talk about for those dealing with somebody in addiction, is getting behind the science of it, meaning like understanding the behavior and recognizing it when it appears. So put some college in your knowledge on this. That's a good tool for, people dealing with that. So that is one in a codependent relationship. What I'm trying to highlight is I've been there as an addict myself. I remember politely bullying or just straight out bullying, people who weren't partaking like me, because I needed to be validated in my actions, like you were talking about. And they were, because the anxiety and paranoia are high at that point. And, if they're not with me, they're against me type of mentality. Like, how dare she think herself better than me? Like, we're in this fucking together. So,
or possibly they would be judging me,
right,
for over consuming. So if they over consumed, I won't get the judgment.
Yep, that was that was always one of my rules about getting drunk. The rule is find that guy or that person and just don't get as drunk. The decoy,
right?
Just don't
find
get
the decoy at the party, and just don't get hammered as them. For those that don't know, the decoy is the person getting the most hammered at the party. And so as long as you're not as drunk as them, like, this is the mental calculation in my head.
Yeah.
I was just finding a way to fit more booze in.
Tell ourselves.
Eventually, with you flirt with that line or you can't find that person, you are that person. You are the decoy, and or like you're trying to minimize your behavior. You think you're behind a shroud, being protected because there's somebody else out there grappling with it. You're not. You're still as big an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think dealing with a loved one or a friend or someone who is an addict and is going through these issues, it's not an easy thing to do, especially if it's a loved one. But you definitely may have to make sure that you can recognize those codependent tendencies in yourself, I think.
Yeah. We have
that you don't. It's not an easy thing to do.
And we have sort of a trail end to that, which is interesting to talk about. So Odie asked, how did you guys begin to deal with this together? So we never dealt with the alcoholism and addiction, Odie, but it
was a feedback loop.
It was a feedback
I didn't want to
loop.
deal with it, so we delved deeper into it.
For me, it was fear. That's the only reason I never approached you with wanting to quit, even though I wanted to quit.
Yeah, the calculus on that was weird. So I will tell this story again in case the newcomers haven't heard it. On August 30th, I have it tattooed. August 30th, 2021. I woke up with such a bad hangover, again, literally crying in my pillow, that I had to go to work, and I was sitting in the office, and I was just like, I feel so fucking horrible anymore. My spirit is getting crushed. My happiness is gone. It's just dwindled away. It's withered, like
Dried on the vine.
Dried on the vine, or like you get a tooth pulled and the little nerve is just there, like I'm dying and withering away. And so I did the calculus. I didn't realize it at the time, but I made an excuse. This is how an addict or an alcoholic behaves. I started to make an excuse on almost a lie, a deceitful tactic of how I could get myself to stop drinking and include Judy within that. It was the best con I ever did on Judy. So I walked in.
And I thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I walked into the room and I was like, man, I want to get healthier. So I'm thinking about, let's just drink on the weekends. Mm-hmm. Judy's like, yeah, let's do that. Let's drink on the weekends. I went back into the office and I already knew how stupid that fucking sounded coming out of my mouth because there was no such thing. I walked into the room without even skipping a beat and I said, you realize if we do this, we're going to double down on the weekends. We will get fucking annihilated starting Friday night through fucking Sunday night.
Yeah, and I think I came up with, okay, well, let's just quit for a month.
Yeah.
Do a 30-day challenge.
I said, okay, yeah. Let's do a 30-day challenge. I went back into the room and something just hit me. And since we just started, since now we had a tiny little
you opened the door.
Blossom of, are we talking about
we're planting the seed.
Our drinking problem that we're well aware of together? Are we talking about it now? So I went back in the room, half an hour later, came back out and said, I think we should just quit.
Yeah.
I just have this image of my head. I love how you guys I've said this before, that your relationship has been strong enough, like even in the darkest times, you've always chosen each other. And I think that's a very special thing that you've continued to grow and foster even more so in sobriety. And that's awesome. I just imagine this, like John being like, this door-to-door salesman and Judy opening the door. And he's like, what if we just did the weekends? And then she's like, well, 30 days. And it opens up just a crack. And he just like brings the boot in. He's like, we're done forever. We're doing this.
Yeah.
We're quitting. Oh my God. So the level of fear that I felt when he said, okay, well, we should just quit.
Yeah. I remember I was super excited. You were very hesitant about that.
Oh man, I was terrified.
Okay. But so then I walked back in the office, came back a half an hour later. I said, why the fuck did you not tell me? Have you been wanting to do this? She's like, yeah, really bad for the last couple of years. Because that's when we'd starting to dabble into a lot of whiskey and cocktails and
brown
stuff.
liquor.
So it just started to get bad for the bodies. But I was like, I have been too. For how long? I was like, well, at least 7 years I've been wanting to. She's like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, well, here we are. So that's when we started reading journal books and everything. Man, that first week it felt so damn good. For anyone out there quitting, especially alcohol, that after that first week of sobriety, man, you're just starting to get cleaned out and you're like, man, I'm sleeping good. But real quick, Patrick, the thing that was a struggle and the still the codependent portion of it was we were both white knuckling it. And Judy continued to smoke pot.
Yeah.
So
for 2 weeks after that, I was still smoking pot. And then I just decided, because I didn't feel like I was still taking that full step and cutting, not being a dependent on something. Mm-hmm. So about 2 weeks after we quit alcohol, I said, I'm going to quit smoking pot. I don't feel like I'm 100% invested in this.
I was so relieved.
Venture, so
I was so relieved because that's another. I was then kind of, I know it sounds dramatic because some people might say, well, it's just pot. It's not. If you guys don't know how Michelle and Judy consumed pot in your lives, probably a good part of the half of the global
the daily
import volume. So there was a lot of it, and it was just Judy would stay in a state of some sort of stoniness, and it was tough to go through that sobriety. So I didn't know.
It's a mushroom.
I'm glad that she cracked and was like, I had it. Man, she had some legit pot withdrawals for that first week too.
Ooh,
if people think that this is not an anti-marijuana thing, people, we all know how it works and blah blah blah. But when you consume it to the extent that some people do, you're gonna.
The extent that I did. Just say it out. Just say it right out. I was like full-on pothead.
Man, wicked headaches and fucking mood swings for that first week. But then she had the awakening too. So it was really comforting. But I didn't know, real quick to wrap up this portion of it, I I was going through the sobriety, and I had a little candle of resentment sitting there too. Like, I'm sitting here sober and she's fucking stony.
I think
it didn't feel good. Didn't feel supportive.
No.
Well, I think that was important though, because we're bringing up an aspect of either Al-Anon or dealing with an addict that is very important. Is, you know, I don't own the actions of others. The best I can do is lead and model the way. That means that you're gonna be there standing, presenting solutions in spaces for these to get better in them, and they may not take it immediately. You may feel upset and dismissed. You may feel angry that, you know, I'm here trying to help you. I'm doing this and you're not doing it with me. The act of giving the space is where the value is, not whether or not the person walks through that door, because they will walk through when they are ready. The best you can do is be there, you know, in a safe, healthy manner without compromising yourself. And when that person is ready to come through, I mean, I bet on the other side of that, you know, when she did put that down, was probably a big relief, right? You know, because it's like we're finally getting on the same page of what sobriety actually is.
Yeah.
Trying to get
the journey.
So I think that's important, that, you know, as dealing with somebody with addiction, and why groups like Al-Anon are important is you may have a revelation and say like, oh, I can give this to this person dealing with addiction, and you know, maybe a new thought, or it's a new avenue for them to explore. And guess what? It may not work, or they may not be on board with it, and it may not sink in. And that sucks.
And we also have to realize that what is going to work for us is not going to work for someone else. If you're you know, you have a loved one who's suffering and going through that, it's not necessarily what you think would fix you should fix them, because their journey is going to be totally different than what your journey is going to be.
Yeah. This has given me, again, that's why I love our show, a lot to think about. I don't think I'm selfless enough to help someone else, a family member or a friend. I don't have any friends that are, I don't have any friends,
that
period.
could also have been from your previous experience when you were
You're
younger.
helping me.
Well, thank you, Patrick.
And to Judy's point too, you've had your physically close people in your life, you've had some pretty traumatic relationships with, right? So, I mean, I said before the show here, dealing with somebody with addiction is tough, but the difficulty exponentially increases as that person's proximity to you does. So that means if the person is closer to you, this is going to be so much more fucking harder.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like it becomes more difficult with family, with, you know, dealing with a mom or a brother or whatever. When you're sharing a household with that person, man, setting boundaries is absolutely and terribly difficult.
I know.
But very necessary.
Yeah, but that's the fundamental part. So
we've had to set boundaries. It is tough. And like I want to also acknowledge though that, man, it is, like I said at the beginning when I was talking about Michelle exclusively, I went through this stuff when I was a kid. We've all been through it in various fashions. The lonely isolation and it makes me teary. The sitting there watching your mom, any loved one go through this while it's like a vapor of a relationship that just starts to wither away. And having that selfless, I don't know what to do about this situation. That's where, when I was a kid, I didn't have the resources or the thought process to figure out how to talk to someone. Who was I supposed to talk to? All of my family was knee deep in some form of addiction. It's very hurtful to sit back and have to watch that because you don't have comfort.
And you disconnected, and you know that's your trauma that you had to deal with. At some point, I am a firm believer that nearly everything that we have a relationship, either physically or with a person, like everything goes through a grieving process, you know, through the stages. And whenever we get stuck in that is where either trauma or the difficulty or our behaviors, you know, not being able to, what are the classic 5? I forget. Anger, negotiating.
This levels of grief.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know them all.
Well, those are the points of the process of dealing with it. And, you know, if you're in a relation, denial, if you're at a certain point with, honestly think about it, you know, John, to use your example of your mom, like you reached a certain point of that grieving process, and, you know, you get stuck in multiple stages at once, but there's core stages. And then you just, when trauma happens, when you just say, yeah, nope, I'm out. And if somebody's stuck in the denial phase, right, they're just going to do everything in their power to build that image up. Like, that didn't happen. That person's dead to me, blah, blah, blah. Like, meaning I never really cared about that person. You know, they'll do everything to say, like, you know, to dead it, you know?
Yeah.
But in reality, they're hurting because they did have a relationship.
Right.
And it sucked, and they didn't have any explanation or why it went away, and it was out of their power.
Or they internalized it.
And they internalized it. Yeah.
So
I've often said that trauma also exists because the child gets stuck, or the person gets stuck in that grieving process. It's either something is wrong with the world, or something is wrong with me. And I deserve that.
Yeah. That's the big one, is that I deserve it.
And there's a lot of times that you take it on, like when you're a kid and your parents do something that, you know, is like, my parents got divorced when I was 5. So I instinctively thought they were divorcing because of something I did. So, I mean, when you're a kid, your thought process is not developed to the point to where you can make those knowledgeable decisions and learned decisions. You just, you know, react, and
they just need the development space to grow their toolkit, to grow their tree. Yep. So too with the people, for us with addiction, and so too dealing with other people with addiction is learning to help set up. I'm not saying grow their garden for them, but you can help them set that space.
It's like putting those bumper rails on a bowling lane.
Right.
You're not actually throwing the ball for them. You're just putting up the bumper lanes to try and, you know.
And that's sometimes setting hard boundaries, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're going to talk to me, I need you sober. Or, you know, if extreme situations, hey, I can't trust you in my house, but I'd love to meet you in this public setting. You know, setting out proper rules of engagement is important on that, to be able to provide that space for them.
And for yourself.
Yeah. Man, I'm so glad we're not in that anymore.
Yes.
I've been in those situations, Patrick, all of that stuff. I'm so grateful that I don't. So if you're out there suffering with that, I feel super bad for you. That's having to be in those relationships. I think it's a thing I take for granted probably anymore, because we don't have to deal with any of that shit. Having a family member or a friend that's in the throes of all that. So just a reminder, it's important to start talking about this. Find a resource
and reach out. Definitely reach out. There's gonna be someone, at least, you know, more than one person who's going through the same thing you're going through.
Yeah. Stories aren't going to be exactly the same, but you can find sympathy and perhaps another perspective of what you're dealing with to begin to approach. I always like to say a diamond, in order to see all of its facets and all its glory, you have to view it from multiple perspectives. Same too with the problems that we're dealing with. Learning to talk about it and understand and sympathize and empathize with other people's issues may give you insight and reflection onto your own, just because how that works. There's another point with dealing with addicts that I want to kind of like address, the elephant in the room. And it's a hard one, and it's a hard lesson to learn because we have a lot of emotions wrapped up into this. And I'm just going to call this rule as don't con a con. If you try to approach with either manipulative or transactional behavior with them. This is a person because of the throes of addiction. Addiction has us lie to ourselves on the daily. We are born in the crucible of a lie. Like, we could paint a rosy picture for you and do all the nice words and everything, but behaviors is really what predicts, or, for a lot of addicts, words are wind. It's their behaviors that you have to pay attention to. And this is just goes put to understanding. When I said put some college in your knowledge a little earlier, that means just like understanding how behaviors work in the person and seeing that red flag. They can promise you the world ups, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. You don't need to worry about if they're getting better or not. You need to only worry about if you're able to healthily engage in providing that space that I talked about that is not hurtful to you, right? It's a really hard one to tease apart, and that's where these support communities come in, because these are the rules of engagement that you have to learn to provide that space in a healthy way, because that's where the person's hurting themselves with their own lies, and if you buy in on that, of course you're going to get hurt.
Right.
So, and it's not easy to separate, or to navigate that very easy, because emotions cloud our judgment. And
the first thing you want to do is help that person.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some things that you need to do to help that person are not going to be comfortable.
Yep.
So imagine what Judy and I, and we're not, our situation and relationship is not unique. There's millions of these out there, but imagine the confusion that our soul is going through while we're drunk. We know that we need to get sober. And on the flip side, I want to help Judy with hers, and she wants to help me. That's tough. It's very, I know we're just talking about it for an hour here, but this shit is really complex. There's a lot more to it, but just like we always try to do, I think we want to be good shepherds of getting the discussions primed and let people know that if you're suffering through that stuff, just start to talk about it. Get it out there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that helped us was that we had each other to go through this with. We weren't going through it solo.
Yeah, that is like kudos to Michelle. I don't know if I could do that. I just don't. It'd be so fucking difficult. I've seen the relationships. I've heard about it. Someone living in that tough.
Yeah, I don't know
Very
how
hurtful.
relationships, how our relationship, to be perfectly honest, I don't know how our relationship would have lasted if one of or the other decided to quit drinking and the other one didn't.
Oh, I couldn't possibly imagine how you would deal with me with the level of fucking drunk, because I couldn't moderate it. Like, Judy, pick me up another fucking case while you're, I take advantage of the situation if you're always sober. Drive me to the bar. No. But so thank you I'm just kidding. I'm not that bad, but
yeah.
And then vice versa too. And I think that's why we were afraid. We had that discussion in the past too of like, wow.
Because I knew that I was not strong enough to go sober alone and to have it constantly around me. I just didn't think I was going to be able to do it.
Yeah. What a fantastic, sad discussion.
Yeah. I think it's important too I mean, it is sad because, I've seen many times when people trying to save other people from addiction that they get stuck in that pit too. Mm-hmm. And
the constant worry, the constant, broken heart, broken promises. Yeah.
Or even turning to the addiction itself for relief. This is when we talk about breaking the cycle. You think children of alcoholics choose to be alcoholics? I don't think so. I think they just don't have the coping mechanisms and the tools to deal with it. They were never taught that.
That was in their environment all the time.
Right. So too, I think that's the importance of, stuff like Al-Anon and learning codependent behaviors, growing your garden and learning how to give self-care first. Mm-hmm. It's funny that that is the same toolkit that we preach for those in addiction.
Yeah.
Right. Learning
Yeah.
to grow self-care first and the toolkit interior. Same thing for those dealing with somebody else that has addiction.
Yeah, and you're both dealing or trying to deal with that specific disease, whether you are in it or whether you're a bystander. You're still trying to deal with that specific disease.
Yep.
We're just trying to deal with being people in general.
Yeah. Yeah, we are a fucking nuisance, us people.
But you know, it's really it's one thing I gotta say. You can always walk out the door.
Yeah. Man, fuck, great discussion going on. And see, Lisa said another meatball of pain. Lisa, did you tell Lisa that you read the meatball of pain when she was not on the show? She didn't have a chance to watch that day.
Well, perhaps that we may have another chance to have. You know,
when can we?
have
That was,
read.
that was
When
a
can we
great
talk
that was a
about
great
that?
poem.
Is that still secret? We can't announce it yet. Not yet.
There's nothing
I
to
don't know.
announce at the moment.
Oh, all right. Well, shit. This person has to tell us when.
You can see him just vibrating.
Yeah.
I don't want him to say.
In January, we might have a special guest, but I don't know if it's been confirmed yet or not.
I would say like 90%.
90%.
Okay, cool.
All right. Patrick has got to get out of here in 6 minutes, so let's start to wrap it up. Man, great discussion.
Yes.
I cannot believe we're staring down the barrel of Christmas week. So next Saturday, Patrick may be preoccupied with another
Family affairs.
So whether he is here or not, we still are planning on having the show. We're going to talk about cravings, especially around this time of the year. And there's a lot that I want to talk about. It's the constant cycle of stuff. Actually, mine have really withered down, but
It's really itchy, and it's not just because of the bad Christmas sweaters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cravings get itchy. Those of us that are former nicotine addicts will tell you. Patrick, you were never there, man, but
You know what? I gave up. I used to chew and
you did?
smoke.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so
Copenhagen? We were like what 20 years so out of quit smoking cigarettes.
I quit in 99. You quit in about 2002. Man, she talk about the stink. She was smoking still while we're doing. I was like, good God.
That's
I don't
I
know.
one
still
habit.
get cravings every once in a while.
So do I, and it got.
I mean, they're like that. They're gone within a second.
they would
but
always appear
still.
too when I drink, and like if I'd get too drunk, I'd always have to like. And I had this line from my roommate in college. I remember him. We're like 19, and he's like, "Man, drinking without smoking's like pooping without peeing." And like whenever even after I quit smoking, whenever I drank, like I can tell you that itch was really strong always.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Nicotine is a beast, man. But fuck, it makes me feel so good.
Michelle says, "You betcha."
Yep. All right, Patrick. Today, you have to promise me. I know you're a fan of the dad jokes, so I think Beckett and Flynn will really appreciate this one. It's a thinker though.
Okay.
Whether when you're leaving today, when you put your vehicle in reverse, you're gonna have to pause for a minute and tell them both, "Man, this really takes me back." Yeah. Patrick,
Nailed it.
do you want to hear my duck call?
Oh no.
All right, here goes. Come here, duck.
If I say those, my son's gonna have those on repeat for the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Good.
And then I hear it from my wife about how those jokes are so bad, and I'm like, well, he's just workshopping it.
Well,
Odie saw the short. I did that on the short.
we want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening, and we would greatly appreciate it if you jumped on to YouTube and hit that little subscribe button. What's the YouTube channel, babe?
Sorry. See, the duck one will get you. It's in the delivery, though. It's youtube.com/@sobermind. Yeah, I don't want to show the graphic like a lot of folks do, but thanks for all the support that we're getting. But a staggering 79% of our viewers are not subscribed. It'll really help the channel if you could like and subscribe. Okay.
trying to punch myself in the face.
Thanks, everyone. If you have anybody or know anybody, or you yourself are trying to get sober or seek help, reach out to Al-Anon, reach out to your church group, reach out. You will find some help.
If it's something you want to talk about, drop a line in the chat. If there's a
definitely.
topic that you want us to work through and navigate and chime in, or maybe get a different perspective on, we're not going to put on the capes and save the day, but perhaps it provides another perspective to think on.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Odie. Speaking of Odie, also go out there and support his channel. He's a great supporter of the show. Him and his clan of folks that he's brought over. Odie N7 on Twitch. I jumped on the chat the other day and I donated just because I wanted to hear him mention my name on the chat. It felt good.
I need to get him to.
By the way, he actually had me come downstairs to listen to it.
I need to get him to do like a little sound blurb of Destiny's Child of "Say My Name, Say My Name, Say My Name."
Oh my gosh.
All right, y'all. Have
Thank
a
you.
fantastic week.
Have a good holiday.
You are loved. Be kind to yourselves.
Be patient with yourself.
And we'll talk to you next weekend. Bye.